This is episode 67 with Joseph Wilner.
Welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, the show that empowers you to become the hero of your life's journey. With your host, Brian Tier.
Hey guys and girls, welcome back to another episode of the Quarter Life Comeback Podcast, episode 67 today, and I'm really excited to be speaking to none other than Joseph Wilner. Now, before we get to this week's episode, just a shout out to our sponsor once again, and today's sponsor is Nomad Accelerator, which is a 2-week in-person bootcamp designed to transform participants into successful digital nomads. The bootcamp is taught by established online entrepreneurs and digital nomads that have flown in from all across the world to teach the skills that have helped them accelerate their nomad lifestyle. Not only will these coaches share their knowledge on stage, but they'll actually sit down with participants to guide them one-on-one through the process of setting up and scaling their online business. You can find out more about the program at bootcamp.nomadaccelerator.com and make sure you enter the checkout code QLC to get $250 off of your ticket. And once again, that's bootcamp.nomadaccelerator.com. All right, on to the episode with Joseph Wilner today. And if you haven't heard of him, Joseph is a psychotherapist and coach who decided to chase his childhood dream by becoming a professional drummer, get this, at 30 years old. Joseph had always made practical career decisions before. He attended graduate school to become a psychotherapist and was building a private practice doing therapy and life coaching. He'd started working with clients who wanted to follow their dreams and do meaningful work, and although he really enjoyed what he did, he still didn't feel fulfilled. After numerous conversations with clients about what they would do if they could do anything and what they'd do if they knew they couldn't fail, Joseph was confronted with the realization that he hadn't really answered those questions himself. And so at 30 years old, Joseph took a leap and followed his lifelong dream of becoming a professional drummer. He's now committed to helping other people chase their dreams and uncover their life's work through his company, You Have a Calling. Now, in this episode, you're going to learn how Joseph switched from therapist to drummer at 30 years old, how to tell if you're on the right path, how to deal with uncertainty and self-doubt, why it's super important to define success for yourself, the more important thing than following your passion, and how to find a mission you really care about. As always, you can get the links and resources we've mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/067. But for now, let's go hang out with Joseph. Welcome back, everyone, and a big welcome to today's guest. I'm really excited to be speaking to Joe Wilner. Joe, welcome to the Quarter Life Comeback.
Hey, Brian, thank you for having me. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to be speaking. You reached out to me by email, and I took a look at your story, and I think it's so cool how you've gone about your, the changes you've made in your career and just your life in general. Very much not only unconventional, but even like unconventional as far as unconventional goes, and people are probably thinking like, what the hell are you talking about? But we'll get into that in a second. But for people who aren't aware of who you are and what you do, why don't you tell us a bit about that and your quarter life story?
Yeah, Brian, for sure. It is a little unconventional. I started on a very conventional path of, doing what most people would do to try to have a successful career, which is go to college, and eventually went to grad school. And so I'm a therapist by trade, a licensed therapist by trade, and I also do life coaching. But now at this point in my life, I'm a drummer who also happens to be a coach and a therapist. And drumming is one of those things now that I've fully committed to in my life, that this craft that I'm really passionate about, that at this point I've brought into my life as a part of my vocation, and was something that took a long time to fully accept that could be a professional endeavor, that could be a vocation. And so I went through your traditional linear path towards success of becoming a therapist and being a part of a private practice and therapy and doing that type of traditional role in society, which was good at the time and still is something that I do part-time. And at 30 years old, after I had reached that that accomplishment where, it was sort of that point where once I told myself, once I become a therapist and I'm successful in that career, that was kind of a milestone that I looked at as, okay, now I've reached this successful point in life. And when I hit that point, something kind of opened up for me, and I started to be real honest with myself that something was missing. That all of a sudden I'd reached this point that would be viewed or maybe deemed as successful from a social standpoint. And I really started to ask myself, well, now what? That I felt like something else was calling to me, and music had always been a thread throughout my life ever since I was a young teenager playing in bands. But I'd always left that behind to follow your more status quo path. And so at 30 years old, I connected with some amazing musicians and songwriters and artists that had a project started with a really inspiring vision. And I joined them as their drummer. And over the last 3 years, it's been an amazing journey with some amazing experiences. I've got to go on tour, and we've got to really experience the music industry and had some publishing deals. And so the journey is just beginning. But I made that shift, and now I view myself as a drummer who also happens to be a therapist and a coach. And so that's been my journey for the last 3 years. And from that, I started a online community called You Have a Calling to assist other people and be a support and an encourager for other people who may have a similar dream in their life that they're wanting to step into. And so that's where I'm at this point.
Man, I can't tell you how much I love this story. Like, I've had a few people, most of the guests on my show, and I've interviewed probably 60 people now. Most of them I've sort of found and reached out to, and you were one of the probably like 5 to 10 who's actually reached out to me. And out of all the people I've reached out to or have reached out to me, when I saw your story, I was like, man, this is too cool. Like, the fact that you were 30 years old when you decided to kind of take up drums again. I know you'd started when you were younger, but never really like taken it seriously as a career option. And if I think, like, I'm 28 now, it blows my mind to think that like in 2 years from now, I might decide, hey, I've always wanted to represent my country at a sport. Let me start doing this sport again. It's so cool to think. Like, I know a lot of people listening to the show are kind of in their mid-20s and feeling like they're too far in their career now to actually go back and try that thing that they're really passionate about. And this is just so clear-cut proof that no, that's just a story you're telling yourself. Like, there really is no age. And especially like the music scene, it's not something that people get into like, once they're in their 30s. So I absolutely love this. What was the thing that, just before I get to that, the other thing that I wanted to mention, which was kind of the whole like unconventional, is life coaching is something that most people get into after leaving an unfulfilling job, whereas you were already doing that and then changed to something different. And I know you're still doing that as well, but you kind of went back to something other than coaching, which I love. It's kind of refreshing. And I wanted to ask, like, what was the thing that made you really commit to changing and picking up the drums again?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It happened somewhat gradually, but for me, it was just a willingness to commit to that. So that was always there, and there was always a part of me that was drawn to that. But I was making decisions less based on truly what would make me feel most alive and engaged in my life on a daily basis, and more from a perspective of what would be deemed as a successful, responsible, respectful path to take in life. And I appreciate that about myself, initially taking that responsible, respectable path, because that's laid a foundation to have the ability to take this risk. If I wouldn't have created a foundation, a career foundation where I was able to have some income and have flexibility in my schedule, it would have been much harder to be willing to commit to the craft of drumming because it just would have been harder to blend that into my lifestyle. But really what it came down to is I just had to make that commitment. I just had to choose to do it. And it's been, it's been a journey. It's been a little bit of an up and down battle, because at times I still feel myself being pulled to that old conditioning. And at this point where I'm at, I really realize how strongly I was conditioned socially to do a certain thing, something I, would have thought I was supposed to do or should do. And that conditioning is still there. There's times where I'll be playing drums or practicing drums, just on a daily basis doing that. And it's so much fun. I'm in flow, and all of a sudden I look at the time and, an hour's gone by, and I'm like, well, I can't just keep doing this. This is too fun, right? I got to go do something responsible, today, to do some kind of something, that fits in that mold of a responsible professional thing. And I've just had to let go of that and fully embrace, no, this is what I want to do. This is serious. It feels like play, but it's really damn serious. And if I'm going to really do this, I have to commit to it and put in the time. And it just so happens that I love doing it, so it's easy to gravitate towards doing that on a daily basis. But it came down to a choice to make that commitment, because on a daily basis, other commitments do come up, and I've just started to say no to more things and yes more to music and to drumming.
Yeah, that's so important. And essentially yes to the things that really are important to you. And I'm sure as a coach, you must have been asking clients, like, what would you do if money were no object? Or like, what would you do if you only had, 6 months to live, or if, that kind of thing. And here you were, like, you had a thing like that yourself that you weren't doing. So that must have played a role too.
It totally did. And I was lucky after this band materialized and I was able to be a part of that. We did get to go on a tour. It was about a year and a half ago now. We went on a national tour around the West Coast of the United States, and that was a lifelong dream that I had. And so once that happened, that's sort of what was the catalyst of, okay, I want to help other people do this. I've achieved this, or I've got to experience this amazing lifelong dream. And now over the last year and a half since that's happened, now I've really had to explore, well, now what? And how does this continue to unfold? And how do I continue to make this a reality? And so it is, there's ups and downs where there's a lot of uncertainty. And sometimes it isn't that thing of, this makes perfect sense, and it's always the completely practical thing to do. There's definitely a lot of what I've been going through, the growth and evolution of all of this, where I've really had to come back to, it may not be the easiest path. It actually is a hard path at times, but I do know it's the right path. And I do feel connected to it emotionally. And it's something that if it wasn't there, my life would, I feel like I would not be as aligned with who I'm meant to be. And I feel like I would be out of integrity. I would be denying myself something that really is something I care about deeply.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and if you can hear the husky in the background, it's my girlfriend. So, what you mentioned now, it's like something that feels like the right thing to be doing. What does that feel like? If someone's listening, like, how will they know, like, this is the right thing for me? I can feel it.
Yeah, something I've thought about recently, because as I've been playing drums more, I've been connecting with more musicians around the area where I live, the Kansas City area. And it's interesting to see people who, are 25 or early 20s, or these people who know that's what they want to do. They want to do music, and they're already on that path, and they didn't really think twice about it. They really went into it. And I think some people do have that ability they believe in themselves, and they're honest with themselves, and they're making decisions. I guess there's a lot of reasons why we would choose to go a certain path. But I think there's the people who are going to be conflicted, who are doing things that they think they're supposed to do. They're not really checking in with themselves internally and trying to find that authentic aspect of themselves that they want to align with. They're maybe comparing themselves to others, or they're making decisions based on what they think people are going to approve of. And I think we have to really explore that a little bit and really ask ourselves why we're doing what we're doing. And it's the why. There's an emotional component to it. I think if you're aligned and on the right path, you're going to feel more open. You're going to feel more expansive. you're going to wake up and there's going to be a little more excitement and enthusiasm about what you get to do that day. Not to say that it's always easy. It's still going to be difficult, but just paying attention to that. If you're constricted and you are going and doing, let's say from a work perspective, you're going into a job or whatever your career is, you feel that constriction and you feel dread and you feel just no connection, emotional connection to it. I mean, sometimes it's as clear as that, and other times it's just we have to dig deep and ask ourselves certain questions, like, what do I really care about? Mm-hmm. What am I really, really drawn to? What am I passionate about? What are my strengths that I can start to look into more, and just start to, on a more practical level, asking ourselves those questions and start to explore that stuff.
Yeah. You must have faced a ton of naysayers and like doubters and that kind of thing. But what I really want to speak to here is the self-doubt, and whether there was like a voice in your own head that was saying like, Joe, don't be crazy. Like, this is just a silly dream. What were some of those self-doubts, if you had any, and other challenges? And then how did you essentially deal with the reality that, like, actually I do want to be a drummer?
Yeah, I would say that has been, at least initially, one of the biggest obstacles and challenges for me, is having to step into the uncertainty of it and realize the probability of what I'm trying to do is pretty low probability. And I'm just now getting to a place where I feel more confident in my skill set on the craft of drums and being able to say, I'm a good drummer. I would have, when I first started, I was like, I'm pretty average, and so it's hard to step into something when you're that far from mastery and commit and say, I'm going to do this. And so there was an uphill battle at times where I would question myself, or I would really compare myself to other drummers out there that I would admire and be like, wow, they're so good. Am I ever going to get there? And what I've realized is I've really just had to honor more of my authentic style and step into that and be like, what are my strengths as a drummer? How can I grow and play music from a place that I really feel connected to, and not try to play like someone else? And really just honoring and being true to the reason why I'm doing it, which is because I love the craft. I love playing music. And so when I can remove the my ego from it and say, and remove the idea of, are people going to think I'm good enough, or who am I to play drums, and just honor that I love doing it and that I know it's something that I can continue to get better at for the rest of my life, it starts to be a little more freeing and a little more fun, and something that I can embrace as it is what it is, right? Whether or not I become some professional drummer that makes a ton of money playing drums, it's worth engaging in that craft because of what the value that it adds to my life. And I think that's the interesting thing when I look at these, these young artists and musicians that already know that's what they want to do. Well, it makes sense they're doing that. They already feel it. They already connect with that. And they're like, this is worth it. This, even the uncertainty of this path and how it's maybe less linear, and I may not know exactly where I'm going to end up, it's worth bringing that into my life. So it's just starting to shift a definition of success, and realize that exploring what your definition of success is, and starting to notice the difference, that there is this successful path, based on our social views and social norms. There's that path we can always take. That's going to be there, but that doesn't mean that it's going to be fulfilling, or that you're going to be engaged in it, or that you're going to feel in integrity and aligned with what you're doing. And so I've just started to blend those, and I've been able to, I feel like, start to create a path where both of those are there, where I'm not a starving artist right now because I have the ability to create income through other skill sets that I've acquired along the way, and other, because of formal education, right? So I do want to share that with people, that, there's a lot of ways to be resourceful, that if you want to take a certain path that's maybe more uncertain, there's ways to take a risk that's calculated and more thorough and planned out, that you don't just have to jump into this idea that, you can give yourself time to develop a skill and to follow a path that you really believe in. You can set things up in a way where it's not just some crazy reckless decision.
Yeah, for people listening, there's so much, like, even if it means you have to rewind and listen from the beginning again, I urge you to, like, there's so much more here than just a story about a drummer. Like, these things can be applied to so many other fields. So Joe, keep it coming. You touched on definitions of success, and I think that's a big one and probably played a big role in your journey. What is your definition of success based on this path that you've taken?
That's an ever evolving definition, Brian. And where I've gotten to at this point in this whole process for me, what I've really started to connect with more recently is that it's not about a final destination. And I know that's sort of a cliche thing to say, that it's about the journey. But until I've been able to really internalize that and embody that, I've found that I'm always striving and I'm always seeking and I'm always looking for the next thing. And what I've realized is that drumming or reaching some point as a drummer isn't going to make me happy per se, but it's how can I engage in life today and now and be present today and show up fully in this moment and sort of be content through the mundane in this whole thing. Because I think one thing that I was relying on before is, well, once I've achieved this or once I've done this, right? Once I've gone on this tour, then I've made it and I'll be happy and I'll be fulfilled. I'll be successful. But what I realized is I went on that tour and then I was right back into normal life and I had to adjust to that. And as opposed to waiting around for the next thing to emerge, I have to choose how I'm going to live today and how I'm going to show up more fully. And so that's been a challenge that I've started to work with. And I've realized that fulfillment and well-being is an inside-out job. And what I happen to be doing and spending my time doing on a daily basis in the crafts I'm engaged in, those do add to my well-being potentially. But I would encourage people to really explore that if you're not where you want to be, don't bank on getting to this point to be like, once I achieve X, then I'm going to win Y. It's more just you have to be willing to show up today and do the work regardless and be content through some of the mundane along the way. Because I think that's the only way we're going to take that journey and be willing to have resilience and persevere through it.
Yeah, and like kind of come from the place you're trying to get to.
Yeah.
I just want to quickly go back to, I asked you about self-doubt and that kind of thing. Were there any were there ever any times you felt like quitting and just going back to your previous practice?
Yeah, there was times where I would, it was never that I was going to quit because I knew that I'm always going to want to be playing music. But there's times where, it takes deliberate practice to learn an instrument in particular. Like anything, you really have to deliberately practice what you're doing to get better. And so there's times where I would be practicing certain things and it would be hard. I would be failing at doing a certain pattern or trying, a certain rhythm. And it gets really frustrating. And in those moments, I have to check in and realize, the part of me that has that fixed mindset that led me to give up all those years in the past is, that still pops up sometimes. And I have to be like, no, it's okay. Just stick with it. Keep practicing. Slow it down. Do it over and over again. And so there's that piece to it that is the non-glamorous side of all this, right? It's like drums are fun, but there's also the times when I'm completely not in flow, when I'm sitting there deliberately practicing something over and over again. And that was amplified a few years ago when I was first getting started because I was so far from, a kind of a level of skill that I wanted to be at. I'm getting closer to that now. So when I hit those plateaus, it's a lot easier to keep pushing through that and keep a positive attitude. Mm-hmm. But yeah, numerous times with putting the website out there and all of these things, I had to face the reality of that imposter syndrome of who really am I to own this message of I'm chasing this dream and I want to help other people do that. And and I don't think that really goes away, because that still pops up. The more you achieve, or when you get to that next milestone, I'm the kind of person that then my vision will expand a little bit. And, once something becomes possible, then I open up to new possibilities. And each time that happens, it's sort of a repeat of, that voice comes in my head that questions things and really, starts to want to play it safe. And I just have to keep working through that. And I guess that's a continual work until, we keep growing into the person that we're capable of becoming.
Yeah. Yeah. I know you've written an article about this, which I can link in the show notes, but what were some of the lessons you've learned from essentially chasing your dreams as an adult?
Yeah, there's been numerous ones so far, and I'm sure they'll continue to develop as I go forward. I would say one of the main ones that sticks out to me in this moment is that you still have to hustle. You still have to really work hard. I feel like a lot of people perceive that if you follow your passion, or you do something you're passionate about, that the hard work isn't going to be there. And I just think that's real important to connect with that. Yes, do something you're passionate about and do what you really care about, and be prepared that it's going to be really, really difficult, and you're going to have to hustle, and you're going to have to learn along the way, and you're going to have patience, and your patience will be tested. And so that's not really a very sexy notion, but it's just like anything else, right? Even if, someone's taken a traditional path going through college, you're still hustling in your own way. It's just you have a little more of a logical order to the steps you need to take to get to a certain outcome, where when you're stepping out into more of an entrepreneurial route, it's just that level of hustle is a little different. It requires a little more self-motivation and self-initiative to make that happen. Mm-hmm. So that's one main one, that, don't be afraid of the hard work that comes with it.
Yeah. You mentioned passion in there. What is your view on the whole, follow your passion, sort of hype?
I think it's important. I mean, I part of the message that I share with people is that's an important aspect. I feel like if we're going to live a life that we feel aligned with, we do want to consider what we're interested in, what we're passionate about, what the things that we can do for hours and hours and not get tired of doing it. Those are important things to have in our life for our well-being. They don't have to be something that's a career path, though. They don't have to be a vocation. As long as we have those, I think that's what's important. To me, what's more important when it comes to having meaning and purpose is to really think about what you care about, though. And for me, through drumming, that opens up so many other avenues to be able to connect with people and try to offer value and help people. I went into therapy in the first place because I really wanted to help people. I had my own struggles in my past, where I would struggle with anxiety and my mood and those sort of things. And I wanted to help people be happier. I liked that idea. And so that's why I went into that. Once I connected to the drumming side, though, it opened up a whole nother way to start to serve people and to offer value to people and really, really, really have that sense of meaning that I really care about this. I really care about helping people find work and a life path that makes them feel alive, that they're really bringing them their full self, their best self to the table on a daily basis. And so it's good to have passion, but I would encourage you to think more about, what do you really care about? What is it that might be a mission that you want to get behind, more than just, I love doing this. It's, I love doing this, and I really, really care about why I'm doing this and the mission behind it. And I like that idea a lot, finding a mission you're passionate about.
Yeah. So kind of like purpose versus passion. I love that you mentioned that passion is just one aspect of that. How are some ways that people listening can go about finding that mission or that purpose then? It's the big one, right?
It is. Yeah. And there's a lot of, I would say obviously a simple one is turning to your values, the things that are most important to you. But I think we all have, that kind of sense of, how we want to see the world, what direction we want to see the world going in. right? What changes we want to see. That kind of idea of when you hear someone say someone should do something about that, like those kind of notions, I think there's something within that, that there's something we really deeply care about, when we bring up those kind of ideas. So if what you're doing right now is moving the needle in the direction you want it to go, you might be in a really good place. Don't overthink it, I guess, in that sense, right? It's not like it has to be, you have to go, start a school in Africa, or you have to, rid the world of hunger, or, you don't have to necessarily have that huge overarching mission. It's more, it's internal. And if you feel like you're showing up and bringing what you can to the world to move it in the direction that you want it to go in, you probably are pursuing your mission.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that you point that out. It doesn't have to be this like Oprah Winfrey, like save the world mission. You even mentioned like drumming. You can frame that as, I'm adding value to people's lives. So yeah, I think it's all how you frame it. I love that.
Well, and yeah, I just want to add something real quick to that, because for me, I really am a very average person that of average talent as a drummer, and I'm going to keep following this path. And part of why I'm doing that is because I want to show people that it is possible. That if I fulfill my vision with this, that's my goal. Is I want to be able to show and take that to other people and say, you can really do this. Like, this isn't some pipe dream. I'm not a special person that's figured it all out. I just was willing to go through I was willing to go through what I had to do to achieve it. Mm-hmm. So yeah, so I think that's important. There's a bigger mission behind that.
Yeah. Joe, I do want to be mindful of the time. Is there anything we haven't spoken about that you think might be worth mentioning for people listening?
I think the main thing is, I'll reiterate that idea of live today. Bring yourself fully into today. Be grateful for what you have in the moment. I think it's so easy to get wrapped up in what I'm wanting to achieve in the future, what I'm wanting to attain or create, and have that passion to go for what you really want to go for, and have that big vision for your life. And in the meantime, stay grateful and really, really enjoy the path and the journey as you move forward.
Mm-hmm. I got some final rapid fire questions at the end here. So just the first thing that comes to mind is perfect.
All right.
What do you wish you'd been told in your 20s?
That it's going to be okay regardless of what path I take, and that I'm worthy.
Mm-hmm. What is the greatest opportunity for quarter lifers today?
Just that change is happening more rapidly than ever before, that who you are now doesn't determine who you're going to become in the future, and just really connecting with this idea of change and evolution is happening all around us in this day and age. And so don't get stuck in some, sense of self that you don't feel good about. Realize you can reinvent yourself.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Joe, I have one final question. Before I get to that, where can people go to connect with you via social media or your website and find out more about all the work you've got going on?
Yeah.
Including the band.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, so I'll start with the band. The band is called Yes You Are. And you can go to weareyesYouAre.com at the website, or you can find us on Facebook. Yes You Are is on Facebook as well. That's a good place to connect. But yeah, we should have an album coming out this year. We have an EP out. Definitely check out some of the music and connect with the band. And then on more of the personal side of coaching and trying to and getting some resources if you're wanting to start pursuing a dream you have, or to connect more deeply with maybe a calling or purpose, you can go to youhavecalling.com and sign up for some resources there. There's a toolkit you can sign up for to get you started.
Definitely. And I'll link up all of that in the show notes so people can find it pretty easily. Joe, before I get to the final question, I want to take a second to acknowledge you for not only coming on the show and sharing your story today and your message, but following and honoring that kind of voice inside of you that was wanting to be a drummer, and following that truth inside of you, and I love that you committed to this path at the age of 30, which isn't even old, but it's what a lot of people would have said it's too old to make a major change like that, especially getting into a career like music. And for just kind of, proving to people that you can do this no matter where you are and what stage of life you're at. I really love how you've made a change for yourself and honored what was sort of most important to you. The final question that I have is, what one thing can listeners do this week to start creating their own quarter life comeback?
Give yourself time to actually think about and reflect on your life. And if you feel stuck or you don't feel like you're aligned right now, I think a great exercise is just to brainstorm. Get a piece of paper and write down everything that comes to mind that you would be interested in doing, or that you enjoy, or that comes up to you as something that would be exciting, and just start to list some things and just start to, without any reservation, write down as much as you can. And then from there, start to look through that list, and you might find maybe there's some patterns, but maybe things come up that you wouldn't have expected, that can just bring a little more zest or excitement or adventure into your life.
I love it. Joe Wilner, thank you so much for coming on the Quarter Life Comeback.
Brian, thanks for having me, man. I really appreciate it.
So there you have it, guys and girls. That wraps up episode 67 of the Quarter Life Comeback podcast. And a big thanks to Joseph Wilner once again for coming on the show and sharing a little bit about his really cool story. If you like this one, please share it around with your friends on social media and shoot me a tweet at Brian Tier to let me know your biggest takeaway. For me, it was the fact that Joseph changed his life and his career completely at the age of 30, which is when most people would have said it's probably too late to be doing something like becoming a professional drummer. So over to you. What have you been putting off and thinking that it's too late to pursue? And how can you start doing that thing today? Now, as always, you can get the links and resources we mentioned in this episode at briantier.com/067. And make sure you subscribe at quarterlifecomeback.com to get all these episodes as soon as they go live. Shout out again to our sponsor today. It's Nomad Accelerator. And again, you can get $250 off when you use the checkout code QLC to purchase your ticket to Nomad Accelerator, which is the first ever in-person bootcamp designed to teach you how to become a digital nomad. Thanks once again for joining me this week. And until next time, keep creating your quarter life comeback.
Thanks for listening to the Quarter Life Comeback. Get started today by visiting briantier.com.